Thank you, Mr Speaker. My question is to the Treasurer. Will the Treasurer outline the importance of keeping taxes low? What is the government doing to reduce the tax burden on hard-working Australians and help people to work, save and invest?
I call the Treasurer.
Thank you, Mr Speaker, and I thank the member for Dobell for her question. Mr Speaker, you can't tax your way to surplus. That's not how you achieve a surplus. The way you achieve a surplus, Mr Speaker, is that you control your expenditure and you have a tax system. You have a tax system that will grow the economy, that supports the economy, that supports Australians and the decisions that they want to make to work more, to save more and invest more, because they know if they work more and they save more and they invest more, that our economy will be the beneficiary. Now, we know, Mr Speaker, and I think all Australians know, that the economy is going through a period of transition. There is volatility beyond our shores, and even here on occasion there is uncertainty. But what we know, Mr Speaker, what we know is Australians are up to the job of working through this transition. And we know, Mr Speaker, that Australians will not be frightened out of prosperity by those opposite. They will not be frightened out of your prosperity, and they will not be intimidated by the fear politics of the Leader of the Opposition, who will give everyone something to fear, who will give everyone something to blame, but he'll give no one anything to believe in, Mr Speaker, because that is the politics of the Leader of the Opposition. But on this side of the House, Mr Speaker, what we are focused on is delivering a tax system that is going to encourage Australians. We're going to deliver a tax system, Mr Speaker, that is not going to chase ever-increasing expenditure, because when we are able to be in a position of budget balance, it will be because we were able to get expenditure below revenue, Mr Speaker. Those opposite will raise revenue to chase after ever-increasing expenditure. Now, we know, Mr Speaker, that one of the big challenges that faces that next year, in 16-17, if you are on an average wage, you will go into the second highest top tax rate. That's where you'll be. You'll be paying the second highest top tax rate if you are an average wage earner. Now, this happened one time before in recent memory, Mr Speaker, and you'll recall it, that was back in 2000. And that's when we had real tax reform. That's where we had real tax changes that actually supported people to go out and work and save and invest. So this is our objective. This is our objective, Mr Speaker. It's to have a tax system that actually supports people, not have a tax system that chases higher and higher and higher government spending that we've seen from those opposite. We saw it from them in government and we've seen it from them in opposition. What is the great lesson that those opposite have learned in their years in opposition? Have they learnt that they should be spending less? Have they learnt that they should be taxing less? No, Mr Speaker. No, Mr Speaker. What they've learnt is nothing. And that's the warning that is there for the Australian people. So on our side of the House, Mr Speaker, we're going to focus on economic growth, because that is the thing that delivers jobs. And what will deliver the jobs and the security of employment in this country, Mr Speaker, is a tax system that supports Australia.
I call the member for McMahon.
Thank you very much, Mr Speaker. My question is to the Treasurer. Can the Treasurer inform the House how his plan to trade tax credits for slashing the penalty rates of 4.5 million Australians will work, and what will the cost be to the Australian taxpayer?
I call the Treasurer.
Thank you, Mr Speaker. I thank the member for the question.
Is warned again.
I thank the member for the question, and I remember the interview that he's referring to, and I think it's important, Mr Speaker. I think it's really important, and all of those on this side of the House know that we need to do everything we can to get young people in jobs. This is what we want to do. We want to make sure that young people know that they are better off in a job than they are on drawing down welfare. And on this side of the House, we are prepared to consider the options that are necessary to put young people into jobs, Mr Speaker. But we're not alone, it would seem, Mr Speaker, because the Prime Minister was asked earlier about the issue of penalty rates, Mr Speaker, and what we found in South Australia recently, Mr Speaker, there was a deal done by the Shoppies Union. Sorry, it was a deal done by the Shoppies Union, which actually led to a reduction in penalty rates, Mr Speaker, a reduction in penalty rates. And the member for Port Adelaide said in relation to the deal done by the Shoppies, he said, this is what we envisaged. This is what we envisaged.
The member for McMahon on a point of order. What's the point of order?
have a meeting.
Mr. Speaker, the
what's
question
point
was
of
about
order?
tax credits. The
Member
point
for
of order
McMahon
is
will resume
relevant.
his seat. The member for McMahon should not raise frivolous points of order. I've warned on this matter before. The Treasurer has the call.
In relation to the cutting of penalty rates in South Australia, the member for Port Adelaide said this is what we envisaged when Paul Keating's government put together the enterprise bargaining model. He said this is exactly the model that we envisaged, and it's in stark contrast to the idea that you would go to the Industrial Commission and try to change unilaterally the penalty rates across the country. So, Mr. Speaker, some opposite understand the need for flexibility. Some opposite understand the need to consider any range of alternatives to ensure that we can get young people in work, and I would encourage those opposite to join those on this side who want to see young people in jobs.
I call the member for Melbourne.